Hi everybody! Hello, welcome to the 46th episode of the Lovebird Lane vidcast. My name is Julianne and I'd like to welcome you all. I think I just did that, but I'll do it again. Thank you so much for joining me. If you are new, thank you so much for trying me out. If you do enjoy the show, remember to hit that subscribe button below. I will be doing one of these every week for you. And I don't have a lot to talk about today, I have to say. I am in a new kind of area. I'm in front of my yarn stash here. You see a little bit of the kitchen behind me over here. Maybe my framing isn't so good. Maybe I should like angle around a bit so it's only yarn behind me, but I'm here now, so I'm not gonna move. Here we are. It is Friday again. Thursdays are my usual recording days these days, but I got all mixed up because my yarn order didn't arrive. Well, it arrived a day early. However, it didn't arrive in time for my second dye day. I usually dye Mondays and Wednesdays. My order didn't arrive until Wednesday, so yeah, I did miss out on my Wednesday, so I just moved Wednesday to Thursday, and my whole week is just all over the place. So Thursdays are my regular recording day, but here I am on a Friday. And I've just realised that I do have my washing machine going, so I might just go close the door so that you can't hear that in the background. And maybe the window next to me as well, because that might be blowing on the microphone. So bear with me, I'll be back in a moment. And another reason to close the window is next door's dog has started barking again. So you probably heard her on previous episodes. She howls and barks. She has a lot of separation anxiety. So yeah, we have to deal with that every day. But anyway, let's get on to some knitting because that's what we're here for, right? However, not much has happened since last week, I have to say. Well, I mean, something has happened knit-wise, but not a lot. So I'll get onto my socks because I have done a smidge on my socks. Sorry, I'm hitting the camera now. I have done a little bit on my socks, but not much. As you can see, they're still fairly close to what they were last week. I think I've done maybe an extra repeat on these because I have been working on my cardigan. So yeah, these have kind of been on the back burner, which I think I mentioned last week that these were probably going to go onto the back burner because my other work in progress is pretty simple. It's because socks are usually my break, but at the moment my socks are actually more involved than my other project. So that is literally all I have done. I've done hardly anything on them. So I don't know when they're going to be finished. And unfortunately, I was hoping that my cardigan would be finished this week to show you. However, I am playing a savage case of yarn chicken. I'll just grab it and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, since last week, I have finished the body because I was still working on the body last week. So, as you can see there, I have my twisted ribbing. I have got cables and yarn and things everywhere here because I have joined, now I've dropped my ball of yarn. I have joined the ball of yarn. So this is the one that I said I needed to wind up. So this is all I've got left of it now. This is my brand new ball that I wound last week. And I don't think this is going to be enough to do 2 full-length sleeves. However, I have mostly knit one of the sleeves, and I'll just see if I can untangle myself because that's always the risk when you're working from 2 separate ends of a ball is you just get completely tangled. And that is what has happened to me today. And the thing is I don't want to dye more yarn. I mean, I could always dye more yarn because I do have the base in stock and it is just my Starless colorway, so it's pretty much just a shaded black. However, like I spoke about last week, I did sort of somehow felt this yarn, and I'm concerned that if I dye some new skeins, they'll be like I normally dye without the felting. Granger's come to say hello. Without the felting, and it's just not going to look right. The color won't look right. The texture won't be right. And so I don't really want to dye any more yarn to put into this project. And for some reason, I don't know why, I clearly never looked at the yarn requirements for this project, because I looked at it the other day and in using the yarn that is suggested, I can't remember what it was called, but the pattern says that for my size, which I think I'm doing extra large or extra large, one of the two, you need 6 skeins of yarn. And I worked out that for 6 skeins of yarn, it would be about 2,300-ish yards of yarn, whereas I dyed up 4 skeins of my single space, which is 400 yards per skein. So that's 4 skeins at 400 yards is 1,600 yards. So that's like so much less. So yeah, I did dye too little yarn. However, that being said, I have got an entire body knit plus most of a sleeve, and I've just started the second sleeve. So because I can't dye more yarn, what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit this second sleeve, and hopefully that's my first sleeve. I'll knit this second sleeve and hopefully I can get it to the point where this one is at. I don't know if I'm going to have enough yarn, but if I can get them both even and have a little bit of yarn left just to do a little bit of ribbing, I will leave it there. I think I will probably get at least to just past my elbow on both sleeves, because the sleeve that I have fully knit does come down sort of about here, so I do have space to kind of rip back to add to the other yarn, other arm, and then do some ribbing. So that is kind of where I'm at, and it is also the reason why I haven't done a lot of work on this project, because I guess I'm just what did I say to Simon this morning? I'm putting off the inevitable. Like, I know I'm going to have issues and I know there's going to have to be extra work put into it, so I've kind of been knitting on and off on it. I haven't been as focused as I would otherwise be to get it finished, because I know that I'm going to have to do this other work and fiddling around and trying to make sure that everything is even and I have sleeves, and that's where I'm at. But yeah, I have tried this on, and I don't know if my gauge is maybe a little bit big, but it does fit a lot bigger than what the sample looks on the lady, but that's okay. It's not going to bother me a whole heap. I've done one sleeve, and that is this has completed the decreases as suggested in the pattern. There's eight rounds of decreases, I believe, in total. So I've done the 8 rounds of decreases on this sleeve, and yesterday I picked up and started knitting this sleeve. I haven't gotten very far. You can see there it's about 1 inch, I think, that I've done on this sleeve. So that's where I'm at on this, and I'm just going to keep plugging away, see how much sleeve I can get done on the second sleeve, and then fiddle ass around and try and get things to be even. Yeah. The extra work is just making me be like, I'm just going to cast it on something new. But no, I am not going to cast on something new, because I'm trying to be disciplined, aren't I? So that is about where everything is at this week. I haven't done anything else. I've done a bunch of dyeing and I've done some planty things, but I haven't done too much knitting and things like that. So I guess I'll move on. All right, well, there's not even really much to talk about that's going on in my personal life at the moment either. So we've just been, Simon's back at work, I'm back at work. We haven't been doing very much. I decided this morning that I would pop up a story to get some questions. I haven't had enough time really between questions and filming, putting up that story and filming, so I don't have a lot of questions. I've got 2 that I can answer, or one that I can answer, one that I can do show and tell with. Yeah, you're wondering what that is, aren't you? But yes, so the first question that I was given was, how did I get into knitting? So that is a very long time ago. Well, it feels a long time ago. I started knitting in about April 2013, and I've always been a crocheter. I have been crocheting since I was mid-teens, I suppose, maybe 14, 15. So have always had yarn around. I crocheted mostly blankets. I didn't do anything too fancy. And I went through a stage back a while ago where I was asking people for their scrap yarn so that I could crochet blankets for the animal shelter, and I failed miserably at that. I didn't actually get any blankets to the animal shelter, but then I had all these leftover bits of yarn. And back in 2013, 2012, 2013, I came down with probably the worst bout of depression that I've ever had in my life. It was virtually completely debilitating. I ended up giving up my job because I just couldn't handle it anymore. I was becoming agoraphobic, where I couldn't leave my house. I didn't like people walking past my house. I would sit on the couch, and if I heard voices or footsteps, I would kind of peer over the top of the couch, because at that time my couch was backing up against the big lounge room window. So I would like peek up over the top of my couch and just make sure that people weren't coming up to the door. And if people were coming up to the door, I would literally hide. I did not want to have anything to do with the outside world. And I remembered that I had all this yarn, and I'd always wanted to knit. I was, you know, back when I was doing the crocheting, I'd always wanted to learn to knit, but that typical kind of you drop a stitch, you don't know how to fix it, you have holes, you add stitches, you know, all those beginner knitter things. And because I am very much a perfectionist and I'm very hard on myself, so I always told myself back then, I can't knit, I'm bad at knitting, I don't know how to knit. So I just never did. I just kept crocheting and never went back to the knitting. So basically in 2013 I was, you know, basically house ridden, and I remembered that I had all these scraps of yarn. I had some needles that one of the people who had donated yarn gave me as well, just some straight needles. And just pretty much probably one day for shits and giggles, just to give myself something to do to try and get out of my own head, I picked up the needles and I picked up some yarn, and I just cast on a very basic scarf. I mean, it wasn't basic because I was already on Ravelry, because I was a crocheter and a friend of mine was a huge knitter, so I always looked at all the things that she was doing. Oh gosh, I wish I could knit. And so I went on to Ravelry and I found a scarf that was, I think it's called the 2-row scarf or something like that. And basically it was just a combination of knits and purls for this scarf, and I started knitting it, and lo and behold, I was actually doing it, and it was actually turning out right. And I eventually got bored of that scarf. I still don't like knitting scarves, but I got bored of that scarf and just started, basically I hit the ground running and just started knitting. And I think my very first actual project that I completed, it was the Rustling Leaves Beret by Alana Dacos, and my friend had the Coastal Knits book that pattern was in, so she lent that to me. And I went to Spotlight and bought a very, very bad circular needle and some Peyton's classic yarn, and I knit this hat, and it is not good because you know, like if you are familiar with the Rustling Leaves Beret, I'll pop a picture in so that you can see. It's like all these undulating leaves that go together, and there's lots of you know, decreases and increases to get the leaves and all that kind of thing. And I can remember dropping lots of stitches. I can remember fudging my way through stitch counts and things like that. But I finished this hat, and I think just the experience of finishing that hat and the sense of accomplishment that it gave my otherwise completely depressed brain, I just kept going, and I've gotten where I am today. So I started yarn dyeing in 2016, about mid 2016. So I've been doing it for about 4 years, 4.5 years ish. And I started this podcast or vidcast around the same time. I did actually start with a audio podcast. It wasn't very good and I found that I was much better, because I'm not very good at descriptions, so I was much better at showing rather than telling. And yeah, so that's kind of just the way it's gone from there. And because I was out of work, I applied for many jobs, never got even an interview. I have a science background. I also have administration background, and never got even a sniff for any jobs that I applied for. So that is kind of why I started dyeing yarn, because I sort of thought, well, I love yarn, and it can't be that hard. The thing that everybody who thinks they can dye yarn says to themselves, it can't be that hard. And then I find out how much actual physical work it is to dye yarn, and getting colors right and things like that. So it basically starting to dye yarn. This is not the question that I was asked. I was asked, how do I start knitting? But it just kind of all flows into where I am today. And these days my mental health is mostly under control. I suffer from more anxiety than depression these days. So if you ever do see me on the street, don't run at me because I will probably like run away. But do say hello. Please do say hello. Just don't run at me. But yeah, and that is how I've gotten to this today. That's that question answered. I can blather on and on and on a lot more. But the other thing that I was asked, I'll just double check. I'll just refresh and see if anything else has come through. No, the other thing I have been asked, where is it? I can't find it now. And Belinda, who is Friday Ketchup on Instagram, has asked, can we meet Marion, pretty please? So that is my show and tell. I shall go and get Marion and bring her out and see how photogenic she is. And it's a good thing that I haven't actually put her out today, so I can bring her in. So this is Marion. See if we can get her in focus. No, does not want to focus on Marion. But this is Marion. She is my lovebird, and she is kind of the inspiration for the name for Lovebird Lane. Hopefully she won't poop on me on camera. But yeah, I got her and her brother back in, I think it was December 2016, and unfortunately Indy, her brother, so it was Marion and Indy from Indiana Jones, Indy passed away. I think he was pretty well henpecked by this one, and I didn't know at the time, if you're going to have multiple birds, you should have multiple food trays, because so they each can eat. So probably partially was me as well, because Marion is quite dominant, and I think she might have sort of crowded Indy out of the food dishes. So unfortunately he passed away, and so I've just had Marion ever since. And I looked into getting her a friend, but I read that female lovebirds can be very territorial. They can be very territorial, and they tend to kill new birds coming into their space. So I thought, well, that's probably not the best thing to do. And because I felt bad for her that she was on her own now and that kind of thing, I've just slowly been, from that time back in 2017, getting her used to me putting my fingers in the cage. Simon and I would, like initially we'd put our fingers in the cage and she'd bite us. And so we've just gradually spent time with her, talked to her, got her used to being touched. And we got to the point where we could give her scratches, and she makes kissy sounds at me because I always go to her. And yeah, so we've just basically worked up over the last, 3 years. It took us about 2 years, I think, to get her to actually come out and spend time with us. And now she comes out most days, because I mean, I love birds, and it is kind of sad that, you know, birds always get stuck in cages. So you can see she's trying to groom me, I think. I think that's what she's doing. So yeah, it's really nice that she can come out and spend some time with us. So she does go out most days if the weather's good, and she has a bunch of friends that come around and she tries to feed them. And yeah, so she's very generous. You're a little cuddle bug, aren't you? Hey? And often when she's out and about, she will fly around, so she gets her gives her wings a little bit of a stretch. That's the word. She's still trying to nibble me. But yeah, we have cuddles, and often when she comes out at night, I take her out to the lounge room, and when we're sitting watching TV, and I just pop her on my chest, and she just sits there and brings her legs up underneath herself, and I just give her pats. So she loves sitting on people's heads, don't you? Hey? You like going on people's heads? And yeah, it's really fun to, because I'm a crazy bird lady anyway, and I have been for a really long time. It's actually really fun to be able to actually hold and interact with a bird. So yeah, I always sort of thought after Marion passed away that I would get a hand-raised bird that I could hold, because at that point in time she wasn't letting us touch her or hold her or anything like that. So I always thought that I would get a hand-raised bird so that I could have it with me, it can sit on my shoulder, it can hang out while I'm working and things like that. Yeah, she just kissed at me, you probably didn't hear it. But yeah, Marion's just sort of turned into that, and I think lovebirds can live about 16 years or something, in the teens, somewhere like that. She's probably, I think she was about 10 months old when I got them, so she's about 4 years old now. And yeah, this is Marion. I don't know, probably won't be able to get it to focus on her. There we go. Who's that? Can you see yourself? Hi, there we go. Yeah, I know. And she now just, when we go to her cage, I can open up the door, and she's got like a little treat tray, and she just sits up on the treat tray, and she'll just hop onto my hand and then fly up to my shoulder when I bring her out. She does prefer to stay out in the sunroom and yell at the birds, yell at the world through the windows out there. But yeah, she tends to come out fairly readily now and enjoys having a cuddle, and yeah, she'll pretty much go to anybody now. Our housemate can hold her and pat her, and yeah, she likes having cuddles, don't you? Yeah. Yeah. So this is similar to what she does. Sometimes she gets up on my shoulder and nibbles my ear and things like that. But yeah, she just kind of hangs out, don't you? You're a cool bird, don't you? Yeah. So there you go, you've met Marion. And that's probably it. I think I might leave it there. I had no end of trouble editing last week's podcast or vidcast, because I have started a new software, using a new software, and yeah, I was having no end of trouble last week. So I might get onto the editing of this so I can get it up on Patreon for my patrons over there. Thank you so much, Nikki and Karen, for signing up to my Patreon. And if you are interested in supporting me on Patreon, there is a link down in the description along with all the show notes. You'll find all those down there. And yeah, so thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed meeting Marion, and happy knitting, happy crafting, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye. You say bye? Hey? Good girl. Good girl. Hey?